think we should get started. Thank you, Aaliyah. All right, so let's get started. Welcome, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon. Glad you could join us today from wherever you're coming from. And if you're seeing this later, hello. I'm super excited to be here with all of you. I am Anna Hunsinger, and I am the Vice President of Community Engagement at Internet2. For those of you that may not be familiar with Internet2, we're here to serve the technology needs of the research and education ecosystem in the US. At the foundation, we provide technology and infrastructure and services. Infrastructure and the services are super important, but so is the people, the community. And what's also integral to what we do is engaging the community and also playing the role to be a convener and a facilitator to bring people together to engage in dialogue, consider shared challenges, and find solutions that everyone can benefit from. So that driver that enables us to support our community through collaboration and community building also is driven by doing together what no single institution can do on its own. So that's a big part of what drives us, and what also drives our shared commitment to support the Minority Serving Cyber Infrastructure Consortium as also one of our key strategic endeavors and partnerships. So I'm delighted you could join us today. I'm joined here today by a number of my colleagues from the Minority Serving Cyber Infrastructure Consortium. And I'm going to ask one of them or two of them to remind you, and if it's not a reminder, to share with you what is the MSCC. So with that said, let's seg to Dr. Damian Clark.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Damian Clark, CIO at Meharry Medical College at Nashville, Tennessee, previous CIO at Alabama A&M and South Carolina State University. So the theme of MSCC is doing together better what we cannot do alone. This is something that started by means of a conversation that I had with a previous CIO of Clemson University, Mr. Jim Bottom, and other CIOs at HBCUs. I think it was in 2016, we sat down together and we started to have a conversation on what is cyber infrastructure, what is cyber infrastructure at a university, the difference between enterprise computing and research computing. And since 2016 to now, we have formalized an institution called the Minority Serving Cyber Infrastructure Consortium. The vision is to we envision a transformational partnership to promote advanced cyber infrastructure at all MSIs. We want to advance connections across campuses around data, research computing, teaching, curriculum development, professional development, and capacity development. And most importantly, we want to learn and grow together. We want to lift each organization, each participating organization up in this field. And we want to reflect the unique voices and interests of our communities. Nothing about us without us. Thank you.
Thank you, Damian. Can we seg to the next slide, please? And thank you. And just to emphasize what Dr. Clark mentioned, these are the guiding principles for the MSCC, as well as the purpose and a little bit on the stakeholders. I'm going to turn it out to Dr. Richard Allo from Florida A&M to see if he wants to add anything at this point in time. Dr. Allo?
Yeah, thank you, Anna. I'm Richard Allo. I'm Dean of the College of Science and Technology here at Florida A&M University. You know, this is a very, very important step forward for all of our minority institutions. I like to use the word empowerment because it is about moving all of our minority serving institutions into the world of cyber infrastructure. This whole world of cyber infrastructure is important to all of us as our educational environments are changing. We're becoming learning environments. We're becoming environments that are impacted by data that will impact every single field in our institutions. And so to see such a consortium come together with objectives such as understanding the benefits of the cyber infrastructure, having a shared cyber infrastructure across a distributed community of colleges and universities that are a mix of urban, suburban, and rural settings. Everybody working together, shared resources, shared development for our faculty and for our IT professionals as we move into one of the most important national priorities that the Office of Science and Technology Policy has listed as creating knowledge from big data. And the world of big data is upon us. And so here we have this great opportunity right now with this minority serving cyber infrastructure consortium to bring campus leaders, industry partners, foundations and funding agencies as our stakeholders to the forefront for increasing access to our cyber infrastructure resources, enhancing interactions and effectiveness among researchers and our cyber infrastructure professionals, for engaging new learning developments and professional career development. This really is a major, major step forward for all of us. Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Allo. So let's move to a couple more updates, and you'll be hearing from other voices also from the MSCC. Next slide, please. Just a few things to bring to your attention to. If you want more information about the MSCC, there's a great website that has been put forth. Please take a look at that. There are a few every week. There are additional things that get added. There are some things that, if you're interested, can give you a sense not just about the activities and the vision for MSCC, but also tools and additional resources that may also help everybody see kind of where the community is and other things. We would very much welcome your feedback as we make this website also a very useful tool to the public, but also to the institutions that are participating in this effort. Let's say today, we want to give you an overview of what's going on with the MSCC and also share with great excitement, if you didn't know, that also the MSCC has moved forward with a significant award that was made by the National Science Foundation late fall last year for a pilot Center of Excellence demonstration pilot. Sorry, I'm repeating myself, but it's an effort in partnership with Internet2 and with the institutions that you see listed in this award, in this quad chart. Just because a logo is not there, that doesn't mean that your institution cannot participate in this effort. These are the initial set of institutions that came together very quickly to put together a proposal now successfully funded by NSF. And we want to give you an update on kind of where this effort is and what's happening. I am, and I'm grateful for this role and humbled also for the trust given to me and Internet2 to be a partner in this effort. So I'm the principal investigator, working very closely with the project team, and my co-principal investigators are listed there in what you see in front of you. Over the course of the 2-year grant period, MSCC, in collaboration with Internet2 and the American Indian Higher Education Consortium, AHEC, is going to be working to address some of the barriers revealed by a number of efforts that you're going to hear a little bit about, but essentially informed a lot by community input and some important work around stakeholder mapping and alignment, and a number of efforts that are going to be shared with you. A key component of this pilot Center of Excellence is to increase the awareness and the support that is needed for professional and career development opportunities for faculty, staff, and students at HBCUs and TCUs and other minority serving institutions. Among the goals of the grant, you can see some of them there. Sorry that the font is a little small. But among these goals, what we have is the need to increase access to cyber infrastructure resources to empower researchers in their use of advanced cyber infrastructure at the campus, regional, national, and why not international level. Additionally, the grant is aiming to support the promotion of effective communication among researchers, university leadership, and cyber infrastructure professionals by extending and enhancing the reach and impact of campus and national research computing infrastructures to institutions with minority-servant missions. We expect that by the end of the 2-year funding period, the MSCC will also be on its path to establish itself as an independent organization as well. The squad chart tells you a little bit more about the scientific and broader impacts. These are important components that also drive a lot of what we do. So please take a look at those. A lot more information is in the MSCC website. And of course, if you have any questions about this effort, please let me know. Let's go to the next slide. I mentioned before that we were, and again, I mean the MSCC was awarded this Center of Excellence pilot. It started in October of last year with COVID and with a whole bunch of things. Understandably, we've been trying to advance as much as we can, given the possibility right now to really bring people together, and I mean face to face. Though we were able to at least get a number of things started. Myself and a group that came forth as what we now call the Consortium Leadership Committee has been meeting every week, not for some time, but essentially since the grant was awarded. Every week we meet. And in mid-October, we were able to have a hybrid meeting with some participants on video, some of them in person, but we had a kickoff meeting that set into motion a number of activities that we have been focusing on. That meeting was really important to also organize ourselves and to do some of the mechanical and organizational pieces, just to get them organized a little bit, to understand the roles and responsibilities also for me as the PI, and in turn for the project team, but also looking at the resources and the things that we also told NSF that we would set in motion as well. Not just in the kickoff meeting, but in the subsequent meetings, we've been able to start advancing and to prioritize the activities that we need to start focusing both on a quarterly basis, but also in the course of the 2-year period. Some important things to mention to you that have been prioritized. One is the need to really move quickly with having a dedicated director and an individual that will work with Internet 2, that will work with the MSCC, that will work with these institutions to drive the activities and the MSCC. We are in the process today of finalizing interview panels for an extraordinary slate of candidates for this position. Our hope is that by February, we are hopefully announcing and then sharing with the community the hiring and the positioning of this role being filled. So that's a really important first step. Another step has been the looking at the other resources too that will come also along the way, both leveraging and activating community resources. The partnership with AHEC here is really important as well, but also looking at the subject matter expertise and the things that also Internet 2 can help and bring into this effort. We've been spending some time mapping and trying to follow up, but also to now enhance the partnerships and collaborations that we must also work with in the community. There are many efforts in the broad R&E community that are very much interested in partnering and working with us. So we're in the process of now prioritizing these collaborations, but also setting up the dialogue with these efforts. And again, just in a very general way, we've been identifying also some of the key needs and along with that, spending some time also thinking about how important it is to get stakeholder input along the way in a continuous cycle. You're going to hear a little bit more about this from one of my colleagues too, but this has been really important so that we can also prioritize and then focus on what we may get started with as well. So in summary, we have identified quarterly objectives, but also again, along the line, what we want to advance and so forth. There's a few other things that are in this slide that, if you have any questions, let me know, but we meet every week for an hour and a half. We've managed to be able to do that. We're operating with very busy people with lots of activity and challenges and good stuff happening in campuses, but we are moving along, and I'm very grateful that we're kicking off the year with a lot of excitement, but also with a lot of activity. Next slide. We are committed to transparency and to share with the community what is happening along this effort. And I just want to give you a snapshot. This is one little glimpse into a very extensive dashboard. We're project managing this whole effort, but we have a lot to do. And we're constantly trying to also look at how are we doing on a quarterly basis, what we may need to do to adjust and calibrate. We continue to operate in a pandemic environment where campus visits are a little more difficult. Nonetheless, we do want to progress in whatever way is appropriate, and that balances also the pressures that the campuses have. But we want to continue the momentum here as well. So if you're interested in, the specific deliverables, how are we doing, the timeline, I am available to talk to you as the PI. And if you go to the MSCC website, you can also ask anybody in the leadership team as well. And hopefully very soon we will have some dedicated resources for the consortium. Let's go to the next slide. And now I want to seg to my colleague, Dr. Joel Gershenfeld, who is going to tell you a little bit more about the importance of the stakeholder alignment and share with you a little bit more on what's been happening to get ourselves more information from those stakeholders. So Joel, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm going to say a little bit about what's on this slide, and then I'll share my slides to show you what's the newest and latest. But we, over the years, have been doing, and I say we, it's Waymark Analytics, which is an NSF-supported spinoff organization, and a group called the Stakeholder Alignment Collaborative. We've been identifying the importance of what we call situational awareness, knowing who are the stakeholders and what are the interests in the space in which you're operating. And in the case of the HBCUs, TCUs, HSIs, and other MSIs, we did a stakeholder map about 3 years ago that was part of the data that led to the formation of the MSI, the Minority Serving Cyberinfrastructure Consortium in the first place. And then in December 2020, we did a stakeholder map for the tribal colleges, and then Internet 2 funded a parallel map for HBCUs and HSIs. And that really generated responses from over 144 institutions. We heard from 291 thought leaders, and it really identified a set of priorities that we were able to go to the National Science Foundation to say that this grant that Anna just described is needed for certain key needs: high-speed internet, access to cloud resources, high-performance computing, and the like. So let's stop sharing this slides, and I'll now share a different set, because what we're doing now is that we have a model of, instead of doing a large stakeholder survey every 2 years, instead what we're going to do is what we call pulse surveys. That the first survey that I'm going to share with you is just to say what are the priorities. And then based on your inputs, we will then go into further details with periodic taking of the pulse and workshops, seminars, or initiatives in response. Before I go into the data, I spent a lot of time in Australia where every presentation begins with a land acknowledgement. I've included in this side the land acknowledgement from where I am, which is in Waltham, Massachusetts. So I'll start with that. I acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands where Waltham and the surrounding communities stand, the Nipmuc, Paquanaket, Wampanoag, and Massachusetts, Mataskeet, Natick, and Pokanog, and Namaskeet people in the region. I pay respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging. So we are in the middle of this Pulse survey. We've heard back from 211 of you and your counterparts, and I'm going to share with you what we've heard so far. This is a preliminary report. The survey is actually still live through tomorrow, so it is, if we haven't heard from you, we encourage you to do so. But already we've heard individual responses from 105 people at HBCUs, 49 people at TCUs, 46 at Hispanic Serving. I've learned that MSI is not the overarching category, but the other category. And we've heard from a few of those and some others. And as you can see, it's a nice mix of university and executive leaders, of educators and researchers, of research data and computing professionals, and even some graduate or undergraduate students. Perhaps most importantly, at the end of the survey, we said, would you be willing to give us your email address so that we can then contact you about future offerings of one kind or another? And I'm delighted to say that 161 people said yes and gave us their email addresses. And so we will also be reaching out through other email lists for different MSCC events. But that represents a core group of people who are, if you will, leaning in. Now, among the people who gave us their email address, we, of course, because it's something.edu, we could figure out where they were coming from. And so I did produce a list of all of the people from HBCUs, as you can see, quite a few of them that we've heard from TCUs, from MSIs and others, from HSIs and then others. And there are a couple of things that I will say about this list. First, for some reason, the most respondents have come from Meharry Medical College. I'm not sure about the causality there, but but at any rate, that I would say that this is an incomplete list, but an impressive list nonetheless, of folks who have expressed interest to be part of the conversation. And I think the challenge for MSCC is for every one of these institutions to have one or more people that are in the conversation. So with that, we called this a pulse survey because we were asking what topics should MSCC be providing, training, resources, development opportunities, and the like. And we gave you 7 choices, and we said rank them from 1 to 7. And of course, whatever you pick first got 7 points, second 6 points, and so on. So I have both the rankings and the total points. But what was clear is that cybersecurity was right at the top of the list. And so clearly one of the early activities in the first year of this grant will be professional development opportunities around cybersecurity. We hear that loud and clear. And by the way, with that topic and with others, in advance of a workshop or a training opportunity or other offerings, we'll do a mini pulse survey just on the different dimensions of cybersecurity so that we walk into that workshop with your own data to motivate the conversations. A second topic was funding to advance cyber infrastructure. And there is, of course, a surge of broadband funding that's happening, and that's part of the conversation. But number 3 was cyber infrastructure tools and methods. And a lot of you are interested to know about edge computing opportunities with digital notebooks and things like that, and other resources. But also up there is career and workforce development, which is both professional development for people who are working in cyber infrastructure at HBCUs, TCUs, HSIs, and other MSIs, but also training the next generation workforce around technology. Also on the list was research acceleration, collaboration in science DMZs. These did not get as many votes, but they were on the list, and they did get votes. And with us on the call is Pat Canavan, who did some classification. We said any other comments, and we heard from 58 different people who had additional comments on these topics. I don't know if, Pat, you want to say a few words about this. I'll just introduce it by saying that 4 of the people said they're all important. But then these have been broken into categories. Do you want to take us through this, Pat?
Sure, Joel. As mentioned, cybersecurity comes out at the top, and 2 aspects to that, which is getting faculty prepared to teach around cybersecurity and having the capabilities and the background to do that. And then secondly, that the campus itself be secure. So there's 2 aspects to cybersecurity that came out in the comments. And then funding, and reading through the comments, there was enough identification that part of the funding need is for people, that we need staff on in the IT community to support both the infrastructure needs of the campus and also the growing needs for cybersecurity. So we broke out funding, but funding is overwhelming. If you add this, and Joel, the next slide would be the funding dollars themselves we needed for the infrastructure needs on campus. So if you put the 2 together, there's an overwhelming need for dollar support for both people and for programs, activities, and equipment. When you looked at the way we had labeled the issue, the needs for cyber infrastructure are very basic on some of the campuses. You see 8 of the 58 responses, written responses we got, said we just need Wi-Fi access. We don't have it in some of our classrooms. We need a stronger and more affordable broadband on campus. So not just the advanced needs. The respondents were also indicating to us with their written comments that there's a whole lot of the basics and fundamentals of having a functioning IT community for students and for researchers are still required. Next. As pointed out in the responses, the research needs for cyber infrastructure were not as strongly evidenced in the written comments, but they are there. And we created a category labeled governance and campus leadership that said that the ecosystem that our cyber infrastructure professionals operate in is one where campus leaders, where the deans and administration need to be more aware than they currently are of what the IT requirements are to be an excellent research and teaching institution, and therefore training for the campus, communication with those people that make both funding decisions and priority decisions on campus is something that needs to be part of what the community does. You can't sit back and just expect that people are going to come to the right conclusions about what's required, how the dollars should be spent, and how to grow the capabilities on a campus so that you can be a leading both teaching and research organization. And then lastly, the written comments about workforce development, you can see there. And it had to do with both curriculum development and having the staff on board who can teach, especially cybersecurity. Turned up in a couple of the comments specifically, that both recruiting faculty to do it and then having the resources to teach it so that you're developing the workforce of tomorrow.
Super. Thanks, Pat. I'm going to stop sharing the screen. But just to wrap up, the idea is that we will periodically take your pulse on whichever topics we're doing a deep dive on or overall. And the idea is for MSCC to be a data-driven consortium. As Pat indicated, the 58 people that gave responses had things to say over and above the ranking of the list. And we always like to hear additional comments and voices because it adds texture to the ranking. But let me stop there. I don't know if there's any more comments or questions, but I think, what you have is literally a taking of the pulse of the community.
Joel, could I make a comment?
Please.
So listening, to Joel's presentation and Pat as well, if you're here looking in and thinking about joining, what I would hopefully say that might be relevant to you, what's in it for me? I think it was 6 years ago. I'm not sure exactly when it was, 5 or 6 years ago. We started something which Joel was instrumental in getting off the ground, called the Campus Research Computing Consortium. And some of the I was involved back then when I was working, and some of the leaders of that are on this call today. Dana Brunson, I saw her in here. And, we were, a room full of people back then, physically in a room, not virtually like we are today. But, and a lot of people were wondering the same thing, what am I going to get out of this? I just looked at some numbers for CARC, and they're going to be presented at an advisory committee meeting tomorrow. And there's literally thousands of people participating in CARC now. And it's serving a lot of needs that were outlined here: professional development, building communities of practice. It just brought me back to that day, and you might take a peek or ask Dana, where has CARC come? Where was CARC 5 or 6 years ago? Where is it today, and what's it doing? And they're refunded by NSF. Lots of good things going on there. So I just wanted to make that observation. Thanks, Joel.
No, I really appreciate that, Jim. And what's underneath the story of CARC, as Jim described it, and now the emerging story of MSCC, is what we call lateral alignment. It's not top-down change or bottom-up change. It's horizontal, crossing institutional boundaries, because of folks who have common interests, as you heard Damian say, to do together what you can't do separately.
Exactly.
So I think the goal here is, in fact, for every one of the HBCUs, TCUs, and HSIs, as well as other MSIs, to have one or more people that are part of this conversation to create this lateral community of practice where you can all build out your capabilities that meet your needs. And frankly, it's a pretty amazing thing to be able to create something new where there wasn't anything before. So I appreciate the connection back, Jim. The launch of CARC felt very much like what this feels like now.
It sure does.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jim. Thank you, Joel. There's still time also for the survey. So really appreciate that you were able to share with us some preliminary findings. Certainly once we wrap up the survey, and as it was mentioned, this is going to help us tremendously as we now charter the course of activities and things. So please continue to be engaged. Let's just to move us along. Next slide, please. I'd like to hand it off now to my colleague, Bobby Clark from Clemson University, to just tell you a little bit more and just to wrap up, and then we can go to the Q&A session. Before I hand it to Bobby, again, we are really excited at AirNet 2 for the work ahead in partnership and in support of the MSCC. And I speak on behalf of not just my colleagues that are here, but also our own board of trustees is very much not just aware, but committed to the role that we get to play here. And on that, with asking for forgiveness here, but I have to call out that one of the members of the leadership within the consortium and its leadership Dr. Deborah Dent, Chief Information Officer at Jackson State University, is also now representing her institution in the Internet 2 Board of Trustees. So Dr. Dent, just wave, please, if you don't mind. But it's important, a very meaningful step forward here to have Dr. Dent also be in the Internet 2 Board. So let's now seg to Bobby to just get us wrapped up a little bit more and share, Bobby, anything you want to say about the MSCC and how to get involved.
Thank you, Anna. And so one of the things that we want to make sure we point out is how easy this is to join, especially if you're in a member institution in one of those categories we mentioned before. We want and need your connection. So please go to our form and signing up and joining up with MSCC is very easy. You'll become part of our mailing list. And hopefully as we expand our services, we'll begin to tell you more about the things you can get from our website and from our program itself. Certainly this survey is incredibly important to telling us where you need to head in that particular one. You fill out the form, you will join the mailing list. I'm actually the one who will put you on. And then you can stay informed about all the upcoming meetings and activities that we will have in the upcoming weeks and months. There are lots of great tools already on the website. And I encourage you to explore in some of them. We certainly have a lot of our information about why this is beneficial to you as a member, to your institution, and to others that you can encourage. And I think one of the things we would love you to do is to encourage some of your colleagues who have not filled out the survey or joined MSCC to go ahead and do that. So this is a very exciting time to be a part of this organization. I believe that this is a way that we're going to build trust community to solve the problems that we're going to have that are plaguing us today and maybe also in the future. So I'm very excited to create this community and find ways to do this. And I challenge you to go ahead and let us know and step up and be a part of it, of MSCC today.
Thank you, Bobby. Can we take off the slides, please? Here we are. Couple more things before we open it up for questions. As part of the work ahead too, we are committed to being as collaborative and to share progress and kind of where we are, to bring back to all of you in the community updates about the activities, what's going on, how to get engaged, and so forth. Once a month, the MSCC has committed to have an open meeting, normally the last Thursday of each month. So we hope we continue to grow the participation at those meetings. But once a month, we'll have a section where we'll update you on the progress that we're making, what you need to know, and again, to entertain and have any questions from you or anything else. If you have suggestions for things that you would like to see in those agendas, please reach out to me or any of my colleagues in the leadership group as well. I apologize to her because I should have given her an opportunity to see if she wanted to say something. Dr. Dent, I don't know if you want to say anything or not. You just waved today. Okay. Okay. Well, thank you. So this is where we are. We are happy to take any questions from any of you, and floor is open. By the way, the slides and the recording to the presentation will be posted very soon, both in the Internet 2 website, but also in the MSCC website as well. Any questions from those of you that are in the midst of all the work involved?
Do we want to give maybe a tentative deadline on the hiring of the program director?
As soon as, okay, do you want me to talk a little bit kind of where we are right now?
Yeah, maybe you could talk about that.
Okay. We are currently, we have wrapped up, I believe, I need Emily to nod. We wrapped up, correct? Interview panels, or we still have one more?
Due this afternoon.
Due this afternoon. Thank you very much. Okay, by the end of the day today, we would have done wrap up with a number of you being involved in a round of interviews with a really good set of candidates. Our hope is that I will be meeting with the interview panel early next week, so that then I can get the recommendations, their input, and probably a sense of a ranking order for the candidates. My hope is to then proceed to another round of interviews based on the recommendations so that I can meet myself next week, ideally with whoever they recommend. My hope is that by the beginning of February, the CLC, the Consortium Leadership Committee, has a meeting. At that point, I can share with them my own recommendations and the recommendations that will be also coming from Internet 2's HR as well. And then we make a decision. If all goes well, past February 8th or so, we're moving with hopefully a decision and the onboarding of a person, hopefully before the end of the month of February.
So that's great. I have a question that I'd like to pose for Damian, Deborah, Richard, Joey, or any of the others who are on from either HBCUs or TCUs or MSIs, HSIs. How much of a culture change will it be for folks from different campuses to be working together? You know, at its core, we're actually asking people to do something pretty dramatic. And I wonder if you might just share a little bit about what does this represent, you know, in terms of creating a collaborative culture in this space.
So I'll take a stab at that, Joe. That's an excellent question. I'll take a stab at that because I have worked at 3 different HBCUs. So this past Monday, I had to present to the board IT committee. And I had a few slides on security, and I was talking about ransomware. And, you know, one of the questions after that presentation specifically towards, you know, security at Mahari was from one of the board members was, well, why don't you hire a CISO, a Chief Information Security Officer? And I said, no. I said, Mahari cannot sustain, you know, a CISO. There's no way, you know, we could afford that. We need that skill set, and we need those. We need those services. And before I could continue on, another board member said, we should do this by sharing these services across different universities. Here in Nashville, Tennessee, we have 3 HBCUs. If I look outside my window, I'm looking at Fisk. I'm on Mahari. Behind me is Tennessee State. We don't need, each of us don't need a CISO. So to answer your question, you know, that may not have come up, or that comment may not have been made at another HBCU I worked at. So in some places, I think the culture and mindset is ready for that change. In others, it's still work to be done. I think our goal as MSCC is to move with the willing and the ready, and be patient and also willing to onboard others eventually.
I'd like to add something to that, in that here at Jackson State, one of our first challenges has always been working in silos, even within our campus. And so since we've been working with the MSCC, and we've had opportunities with the first grant that we worked on with Jim and Jill, we're managing to break down silos. And now what we're doing now, we're seeing that not only can we break down our internal silos, but even with just the group that we're working with now, we're breaking down that silos between the different institutions. And there's a trust here. And that's what's important, is a trust, and that we understand that we all have the same needs, and we're not in competition with each other like we are on the football field. This is totally different. So now we can work together, and we see this. We're excited about it, and we're working together, and we're excited about bringing everybody else on so that we can move forward, because we're in a new age, and we're going to have to work together for us to move forward. And then I wanted to add one more thing. Anna, when you invited me, it gave me a chance to speak about, did I have anything to say? And I didn't, because I'm working from home and I'm babysitting my daughter's dog, and he was performing at the time, and I didn't want to unmute. But this has been an experience. Also, what I found out, that the board of directors is so supportive of this effort. And this is just exciting. We just can't wait to see where we're going. Thank you.
This is Tom Jackson from North Carolina A&T. I'd like to comment about shared resources. I come from a background where 17 campuses have been working together for over 40 years. And for at least 20 of those, we have had a formal arrangement where some subset of us share resources. It's doable. It can be especially beneficial for smaller campuses in particular. It can be especially beneficial for campuses who have trouble recruiting expertise, or even affording expertise in some higher level positions. But it does require that a campus is willing to change its practices and possibly even change some of its policies, so that there's an opportunity to align your processes and your procedures, and perhaps even your technology, across multiple campuses. Because if each campus is entrenched in a position and unwilling to yield and potentially make some pretty major changes in their processes or procedures, all you're going to do is dilute the time of this shared resource to the point that they can't be effective. The only way that really can work is if that person essentially has one job that every campus can share, and not every campus has a portion of one person, because then you just get less impact. So right now, the University of North Carolina system has 10 campuses who've been working together for probably about 18 years to share resources for our banner environment. And it has been a real journey to bring those campuses together to the point we are in. So some of those changes may take quite some time, but go into it understanding everybody has to be flexible, and everybody's got to give up and yield something. There's one other thing that might be important. If you are a state school, you may have regulations or obligations that other non-state schools don't necessarily have, and that can really impact the extent to which you can share those kinds of resources.
Yeah.
Can
I bring up?
Yeah.
Everything, I agree with everything that's been said, because diversity and inclusivity and equity are things we talk about now a lot. But I want to bring a little different direction here. Academically, we're all very, very concerned about the vast underrepresentation that we have for historically underrepresented minorities at the PhD level, STEM. We need, for example, here, a major NSF grant. It's called the Florida-Georgia Lewis B. Stokes Alliance for Minority Participation. What's important about this grant is it involves not only our HBCUs and HSIs, but also predominantly white institutions. 13 of our Florida institutions and one from Georgia. We're all concerned about broadening participation. And we also have a statewide initiative led by Gainesville, the University of Florida, Gainesville, which talks about AI and data science across the curriculum. And that's what we're doing here. To be able to do that, AI data science across the curriculum will require us to have these significant cyber infrastructures, be able to utilize broadband and draw down on big data. This will help us broaden participation in the following sense. We've already had some examples of this with students that we've been bringing on board, even at the undergraduate level, that are coming from disciplines outside of STEM, like the humanities, for example. And we're giving them an infusion in their undergraduate curriculum of computational science and data science. And what that is doing is that's allowing them to add STEM to their discipline. They're not giving up their domain, but they're also becoming STEM people because they're using tools from discrete mathematics and discrete areas, tools from computing, to create knowledge that is applicable to their domain of study. NSF has approached us about when we went for our new grant. They said, well, you've had this grant, and not just us, but other AMP grants across the nation have had grants from NSF, these Alliance for Minority Participation grants, for 25 years. And we've done some very important things that are very, very effective, but it hasn't moved the needle enough at that vast underrepresentation that we have at the PhD level. We're going to attack that at the level here, at the undergraduate level, at the pre-college level. So we are trying to look at what are non-cognitive ways that, what are the non-cognitive ways that either attract or detract young people from going into STEM. But you know, coming into the world of big data, which is what cyber infrastructure will provide us, provides us this opportunity to reach out beyond STEM and add and enrich other domains with STEM. And I find that as a way that all of us can come together and help to broaden participation. The other thing is we live in a state here that's 16.9% African-American and 26.9% Hispanic, over 44% historically underrepresented minorities. And so we look 5 years, 10 years down the road, we need to have all of these people, this representation at the table. And so I see this as a great opportunity to help build that. A little bit different than what was being said before, but on the academic side, this is a thrust that I think we can take advantage of.
And if I might, I'm hearing three things in the comments. Damian, Deborah, Tom, and Richard all mentioned that there are some existing collaborations that are happening or that people are open to, which is a great building block, but that you still have to take the initiative to extend those connections. So collaboration is important, and you're not starting at zero. But I also heard Tom point out that there may be some institutional barriers in the way, such as state systems, policies, and other kinds of things. So part of the work of MSCC will have to be to identify and lower those barriers. But I'm also hearing in this last set of comments from Richard that it really is about, you know, there's a report to the NSF called The Missing Millions of bringing into the workforce and into society folks that we're not hearing from. And as Damian said in his remarks, nothing about us without us. It should be you that are doing it, not somebody else who, in a sense, is trying to come down in a top-down way. That there really is a theme here of the STEM workforce emerging from this, as well as the infrastructure that you're building. But let me have it go back to Anno. A simple question, tell us about the culture, and we learned a lot.
I'm glad that you posed that question, Joel. I think that was fantastic and a great way to close today. Thank you for that summary. So no small feat here to start addressing these things. Again, we have a lot to do, and we're super excited to play a role. And thank you everybody for joining today. I'm going to give everybody 1 minute back. No, it's not a lot, but we wrap up the recording. But thank you everybody for joining us today. Again, please get involved if you haven't. If you have any questions, reach out to the mailing list in the MSCC, and we will keep you appraised. We're excited about the work ahead. Thank you everybody, and please be well and stay safe and healthy.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.